Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hugnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Watch the show, of course, here on the ThunderCast YouTube channel, and you can listen to the audio versions anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcasts. Dude, what a freaking homecoming for the herd. Not only from a crowd standpoint, not only from a former player's standpoint, but what a freaking game. This was an all-time, recency bias is really a thing. And it seems like in this day and age, everything that just happened is the greatest thing ever. But I can't really remember a homecoming game that gave us this much excitement, rode an emotional roller coaster like this one did, and saw as much fight and grit in a herd team in recent memory. I can't pull one out of my head that is a homecoming game that gave us all of that. Can you?
No, because, I tout my memory all the time, but in my advanced age, it's slipping. So all these games, I'm wondering, was that actually homecoming? Was that actually homecoming? I remember a couple of homecomings when we were students, in that Chad and Byron era, and they were great. One, because it was homecoming. You dropped 52 on Buffalo in the first half with 408 passing yards or whatever. You're like, it's an awesome homecoming. Was it really like it is with this game? No, and I don't know that was a homecoming game. I can't remember, but you get my point.
Yeah.
This one's going to stick out for a long time because it was a homecoming. It's the only time we ever went up against this opponent. So it's not like you're going to conflate two different home matchups against the same team. This will be one you'll remember for a while.
And not only will you remember the whole of the game, the moments. There were so many different moments by different guys. Like we're lucky, and we talk about 75 week, for example, there's always that moment in the game. And we love those. But in this particular game, so many individual moments from individual guys, so many of them, so many different guys made plays that I think this game in particular is going to stand out for a lot of people. So many people came in. The challenge was issued by Tony Gibson to pack the place out. I think the herd really did that. The fan base did a really good job of that. And they were treated to an absolute show. What an all-time great game. And I want to talk about all of it. But please, first, before we can get into any of this, give me a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
For the second week in a row, I believe our opponent is going to say we beat ourselves in this game, but I can't think that they did that. This is more of a gutsy, heavyweight bout that everybody just kept throwing punches. And in the end, it came down to one defensive stand that forced a field goal versus one defense that could not get that defensive stand and gave up the final touchdown. This was a 40-37 double overtime thriller in Huntington, West Virginia. The herd now moves to 4-3 on the season, 2-1 in the Sun Belt Conference, in sole possession of third place in the Sun Belt Conference East Division, behind first place currently James Madison, who's still on the schedule, and second place currently Coastal Carolina, who is the herd's next opponent. So that tells you that everything is still ahead of the herd despite a 4-3, 2-1 record. You win and you're in, baby. That's all there is to it. You keep winning and you will find yourself back in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. A lot of football to be played between now and then, but it's worth noting. The herd controls its own destiny. Several teams control their own destiny, but the herd is one of them. Tony Gibson now has a winning record for the first time as a head coach, and I don't think that can be understated, with 70 plus brand new members, getting these guys to believe in one another. He's talked about that, but saying it and seeing it are two vastly different things, and we're seeing that. And lastly, this was, of course, the first time we played Texas State, probably one of the last times, if not the last time, we'll play Texas State. And this finally rounded out the opponents in the Sun Belt Conference. They were the last one that we needed to check off the list, and we finally did that. So we finally played every other team in the Sun Belt Conference. Russ, what was your take on this whole game? But first, you can talk about the tailgate and everything. The Saturday as a whole, how was that for you?
Well, leading in, I said 41-38, and I didn't think that it would be like us winning on a last-second field goal to get to that. And the score was eerily close to that, and the statement was eerily close to that. That was not what I was intending, and not what I was thinking was, this wild game that we had. I saw it very, very much differently. Mm-hmm. You and I talked a lot about chunk plays. We'll get into all that later, but, it's almost like some of the things that show up to us as things to watch play out in real time. Go figure. The game as a whole was great. The tailgate as a whole was great. I'll talk about it real quick. We ended up having Bill Johnson Catering, who has the kitchen over at Willie's at the Paddock, but also does catering with his smoker, his grills. He's got mobile steam table pans or warming tables. He's got a mobile fryer. He can do just about anything. I'm still sore and licking my wounds from that bad fall, which is now 8 or 9 days ago. And I said, for homecoming, 85 degrees, I do not want to go over there and try to cook and try to do all that. Let's get Bill over here. So if anybody's looking for their tailgate to be taken up a notch, get with Bill. Or if you've got any events going on, get with Bill. Great turnout. Once everybody got into the lots, the game was pretty well attended. We'll talk about the rest and grades.
Yeah. I've got to say, I asked you guys if you remember, this is kind of a little foreshadowing on my part because I thought this might happen, but I didn't really want to say anything. When we were doing ThunderCast Live, powered by Ignite.link, I'd asked you, have you seen anybody at the tailgate? Have you seen any former players over at the tailgate? And you were like, no, not really. Because I had sent some tweets to some guys that said they were in town. Of course, when it was announced that Mike Green and Ethan Driscoll were going to be in town, I tweeted at them, hey, you guys are welcome to come over and get your bellies full and that kind of thing. And I'd seen that Micah Abraham had tweeted, where's the good tailgates at? So I tweeted at him, hey, just follow the smell of fresh barbecue until you see the smoker. You can't miss it. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, late in the tailgate session, I saw the picture that you posted, and you have 4 former Herd players, some all-time greats and legends in that group stopped by the ThunderCast tailgate, which is why we always say you just never know who's going to pop up at the ThunderCast tailgate. So I want to say thanks to Jeremy Jones and Sam Burton, Micah Abraham, and Mike Green for stopping by, eating some of that great food, mingling with Herd fans, and just allowing us to help enhance their game day, their homecoming. That was really awesome. Those guys give us so many great memories over the years, not just those 4, but all of our former players. They give us so many great memories as fans. This is just a great way for us to give back to them and show them that we appreciate them. So all you guys listening, former players, alums, it doesn't matter. Visiting fans, visiting player parents, you're all welcome at the ThunderCast tailgate. That's why we exist, to make the game day experience at Marshall University that much better for fans.
We had some players.
Awesome.
We had some player parents come by. Some of them are frequent visitors. Some of them, this was the first time I got to meet them, and it was great. I tried to get some Texas State fans to come over as they passed by, and they seemed a little apprehensive, like it was a trick maybe. But yeah. There's no trick when I'm trying to offer you something fresh off the smoker, I promise.
Yeah. It's never a trick, guys. Like Coastal fan, or not Coastal fans, who's the next game? James Madison?
JMU.
I think JMU knows by now that
we're not going to have a problem with that. We'll have JMU sound off with us. Dead Meat Society Chief Grilling Officer Jake Coons will be there with the family, and a bunch of other fans from there that have followed us over the years that are saying, hey, it's a bucket list of mine to get to Marshall because the JMU fans that were there previously told us. So I don't think we'll have that problem. We'll probably have a massive tailgate there for that. But no, when I recognized Mike Green immediately, I did not make the usual chicken sandwich joke with him. Micah Abraham there, and he actually had the 6, his old practice shirt on. So, he stood out, and I've conversed with Mike personally several times. Sam had sunglasses on, and I did not want to assume. So, and I said, "And your name?" And he said, "Sam." And I said, "Burton." And he said, "Yes." So, and, but they were all talking. We were talking about 75 week, because they said they're coming back for the JMU game.
Yeah.
And they said, and I said, it's November the 8th. It's not the same week. So, all the scheduling issues that we've had problems with, but they'll be back here for then. And I told them, I said, this is just an absolute testament of what Marshall meant to you guys, that you want to come back here multiple times, come for homecoming, come for the 75-week game, that it just means that much to you. So
yes, that's Herd Brothers next generation, that we talk about, and that some of us are concerned about with this portal era and the era of guys being here for a year or 2 years, where you lose some of that, and you will. But it still goes to show you that there will be guys and are guys that it matters, and they still want to be a part of this program moving forward. They still they know their place in Herd lore, in Herd history, what they meant to the program and what they mean to fans. And it's just great, always great to see those guys sniffing around the lots and coming back for games. Really, really cool to see them there. All right, you want to talk about a football game? Because, man, it was awesome.
Let's do it.
It was an awesome game. Again, 40-37 double overtime win for the Herd. That one was up and down. I was on the edge of my seat a lot in this game. I haven't been invested this much in a game in a long time. And it was, to the point where we've made the comments about how I don't let games really ruin my week anymore. I felt like I was flirting with that one for a little bit, man. I thought, man, if this one slips away, it's going to stink for like 3 or 4 days, and I'm not going to like it. That's how invested I was in this game. But let's start with those indicators: total yards, time of possession, first downs, third downs, penalties, and turnovers. Total yardage, yowza, 558 yards of offense for Texas State, 466 for the Herd Edge Bobcats. Time of possession, 32-43 for the Herd to 27-17 for the Bobcats Edge Herd. First downs, 27-20 Edge Herd. Third downs, 9 of 19 for Texas State, 6-14 for the Herd Edge Bobcats. Penalties, just 5 of 60 for Marshall, 12 for 80 for the Bobcats Edge Herd. 3 turnovers for Texas State, just 1 for Marshall, and that one is a big old Edge Herd. One of those late turnovers was massive. Absolutely massive. And we'll get into that, of course. Let's talk about this Herd offense. Carlos Del Rio-Wilson again gets the start, 22 of 32 on the day, 277 yards and a touchdown. We do see him throw his first interception of the season, which, again, we talked about that a lot. He was due, but no sacks on the day. 17 carries for 88 yards, leads the Herd on the ground with a long of 14. The thing for me, though, Russ, he exited at least 3 times. But he did go back in. He re-entered the game, of course, but that second, it's not really a bye week, but the long week is probably going to be hugely helpful right here after this one.
ESPN does have them down for a sack.
It's on Ja'Kai.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's on Ja'Kai Long.
I remember that now. Yeah.
Antoine Roberts is the leading rusher from running back standpoint, 13 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown with a long of 20 that opened the scoring for the Herd after Texas State had went right down the field. Marshall responds with a short field touchdown to draw the game even. Joshawn Barbary, freshly back from injury, 12 carries for 33 yards, 2 touchdowns, both occurring in the overtime periods. Floyd Lacey, 7 receptions for 88 yards, 3 carries on the ground for 18 yards, and the most clutch 2-point conversion on a semi-busted play. I think that was going to be a Philly special. It looked like it was supposed to be. Props to Floyd Lacey for seeing that wasn't going to work and having the athleticism to get that 2-point in. DeAndre Tamarez, 3 receptions, 59 yards with a long of 44. And then Adrian Norton, 5 catches for 54 yards and one of the most grown-ass man touchdowns I believe I've seen in the last decade for the Herd. Overall notes for this Marshall offense, 40 points. Again, that's 4 straight games with 40 points, 5 straight if you go 30 with at least 38 points. Over 450 yards of total offense, which is great. And boy, oh boy, they just kept throwing freaking punches. They did. They had no quit. All these drives, get down, stall, kick a field goal. They just kept punching. You could see where it would have been really easy for them to pack it in and get frustrated for not being able to punch it in the end zone. They didn't do that, man. And they needed every single yard that they earned in this game. Defensively for the Herds, Javay Gilmore leads the way. 12 total tackles, 2 solo, half a tackle for loss, and a pass defended. Boogie Trotter has 10 tackles and 5 of those solo. Marvay Myers, Cam Smith, Paul Hudson III, and Kerryon Martin, all 7 total tackles each. Myers gets 6 solo, 1 sack, and a tackle for loss. Cam Smith has 5 solo and a pass defended. P3 gets 3 solo, a sack, and a tackle for loss, and Kerryon Martin has a 1 solo and a pass defended. Impact plays for this Herd defense: 1 interception, 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 2 fumble recoveries, even though 1 of those came on special teams, and 4 passes defended. Now the notes. This Herd defense allowed 444 passing yards to the number 7 rush team in the country. They allowed 2 wide receivers to go over 160 receiving yards. Dawn had 180 and Sparks had 168. And then you did, though, limit that number 7 overall rushing team that was averaging 250 yards per game to just 114 on the ground. But you mentioned it. We talked about it over and over and over. Texas State lives and dies by the chunk play, and they feasted in this game. It just was not enough at the very, very end. Teams in this one, Lorcan Quinn finally gets that perfect day we've been hoping to see, and we needed every single point. 4 of 4 on field goals with a long of 48, 2 of 2 on extra points, becomes the 6th Herd kicker to kick 4 field goals in a game. 4 of those 6 all-time Russ have occurred since 2014. Nathan Totten, 3 punts for 147 yards, 49 average, 2 touchbacks, and a long of 51. Floyd Lacey gets 2 punt returns for 27 yards with a 13.5-yard average with a long of 23. That one looked like it was about to do some real damage, but he got grabbed by the T-shirt, I think. Xavier Turner Bradshaw, 3 kick returns on the day, 49 total yards, 16.3 average, and a long of 31. How about we revisit our keys to victory?
Got him. Number one for me was stop the big plays. They have a terrific offense. They have a crazy amount of runs over 50 yards. You can prevent or severely limit those. Their offense doesn't have as much bite. No, X. We did stop that run, but they did it on the passing, and it was short passing that went for that. So, no, that was their offense. That was their game. In fact, I've got this here. This is not counting at least one, maybe a couple of 20-yarders. I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of the games on ESPN, when you do the play-by-play, the times are all off, and they're
way
not
off.
And they're in, like, you'll click on a drive for Marshall and it'll be all about Texas State's offense. So this was very hard to track these. So I picked these 5 that I knew of without getting into the 20s, the 21s, the things like that. 66 yards to Dawn, 50 yards to Dawn, 31 to Sparks, 39 to Dawn, 73 yard to Sparks. Not counting those 20s, those 5 were 259 of their total yards.
Yeah.
And that is 46.4% of their entire offensive production and 58.3% of their passing yards. I mean, so those 5 alone, and I mean, we're talking about some of them on third down. Some of them went for touchdowns. I mean, these were huge. That if we could have limited these, this would have been an even bigger change of the game's trajectory. But you got to give a red X for that. We didn't do it at all.
Yeah, that was the glaring most important thing to take care of. And it was even though you win the game, which is all that really matters, you didn't do that. And imagine if you had. This would have been closer to what my number 1 key to victory was, is more of the same, please. Give me a repeat performance from Old Dominion. We didn't get that at all. This defensive secondary got absolutely torched by the long play early and often. And then you talk about like late in the game, you score the go-ahead and touchdown, and boom, they're right down the field. Bam, bam.
Yeah.
I mean, right
Yeah.
down the field. And you're thinking,
Mhm.
what the hell is going on here? But yeah, those chunk plays never went away. They had, I mean, I tried to count them. I couldn't count them because you only, like you said, ESPN is all over the place. And they only list the number one longest play for like a particular player. So he could have had 3 or 4, but you only get one of them.
Even when you're going down the play-by-play, they
Yeah.
have them kind of roughly in order, but not categorized the same. It starts repeating themselves, like because they're putting. So I mean, you're counting that. It's like, wait, I counted that earlier. That's from the third quarter. So it was tough to do, but I know that they had a couple of runs around the 20, but they had 2 to 3 more passes around there. You take all those away. I mean, they were just a short offense, but.
But they're really good at getting those.
They're really good. I mean, it wasn't like, except for one, there was a broken tackle, the first 66-yarder, 2 broken tackles actually. But after that, it was a design play to get that person that ball in space. Yeah. And that's just good offense. It's not like, I mean, you got to stop it, but it wasn't like it was a fluke is what I'm saying.
No, that's their bread and butter for a reason. They're really good at it. So, what was your number 2?
Do not let Jackson pick you apart. He has a 70% completion percentage on the year, has only thrown 1 INT in 150 attempts. We need to make him sweat back there with good coverage on his receivers and pressure that makes him have to improvise. Now, we got to him 4 times, and we made him improvise more than that. Mm-hmm. But I got to go with the Red X. He did sit back there and pick us apart. He put 444 yards on us through the air, and we did not have that great coverage on the defensive backfield. So Red X there too.
Yeah, number 2 for me, which is I couldn't have been more wrong. Force the pass to try to beat you. Well, they did, but it didn't beat them. But they damn sure tried to do it, and it was really, really close. I mean, this is going off of what the statistics through half of a season were telling us. And I was telling you in the preview, like a 70% completion percentage doesn't concern me because I didn't think we were going to see a passing explosion like this. Right. And I can't be too sure that they thought they were going to see an explosion like this. Surely they thought they'd hit 1 or 2, maybe 3, put them in position, but not half a dozen, 8, 10 long pass plays. Like even they couldn't have seen that. But once you get into the throes of the game, you're like, holy shit, this is working. Well, let's keep doing it until it doesn't work. Well, why do we need to run the ball? We're getting touchdowns here. And we're trading touchdowns for field goals with the herd. And that was getting a little worrisome. But, the pass did not beat Marshall, even though on any given play or any given drive, it did beat Marshall. But for the whole of the game, it just did not. But still, an X. What's your number 3?
Number 3 for me was stop them on third down and stop them in the red zone. They're converting over 51% of their attempts on third down and 90% in the red zone. I don't have the red zone stats up here. I don't need to have them up here. It's another Red X. They went 9 for 19 on third down, and some of those were just those massive chunk plays. Some of those were to get them into the end zone. I think that we had them on third down. If you stop them here, there's a 73-yarder. So I can't give that even a hint of a check, even if you come out and say, well, we stopped them 3 times in the red zone, whatever. I know we stopped them 3 times on fourth down. That's not what I said. Third down, red zone, can't give it. That's another Red X. 0 for 3 so far.
Yeah, I don't think you can look you don't have to look deeper than right at the end of the ball game. You got them at a 3rd and 8. They hit a little screen play that goes 80 some yards to pay dirt. And you're like, holy hell, there's your ball game.
Right.
And then whatever happened after that. But that was deflating as hell. But my number 3 key to victory was you start fast and you engage the Joan C. Edwards crowd. Well, Texas State started faster, but you turn right around. You get the strip sack, you get a short field, and you punch it into the end zone. You get the crowd right back into it. And I'll give credit. The crowd got loud later in the game when they needed to make noise. I think they even caused a false start penalty in the overtime period. Yep. So the crowd was engaged in that game. I think everybody was on the edge of their seat thinking this could really go either way. You start thinking like the first one to get held to a field goal attempt is probably going to lose this game. And that's what happened. But credit to the crowd, credit to the student section for showing out big time. Credit to everybody for going to that game, staying at the game, being engaged in that game, and really making a difference. Tony Gibson praised the herd crowd after the game, or on social media. He challenged the coaches and players, challenged people to come out. They came out. 27,533. We talked about that. Would we get over 26, 27, pushing 28,000? We did, and it makes a difference. You can see as a fan how important you can be in close games. Marshall could have easily lost this game if you have a deflated crowd and you have 21,000 there and they're just not really a factor. Could have lost that game, but those guys stayed hype. They were engaged in the game. The crowd kept the players and coaches juiced, and it showed. You needed all that. What was your number 4?
Number 4 for me was score. This could be a very high scoring game. We had to keep up. Our offense needs to be explosive. Well, we did keep up. And in a game where you're just getting 66, 63, 73, 39, 31, all these throws going on you, but you don't give up, I'm giving them a green check mark here. This wasn't the explosiveness that I thought that we would see. It was it 17-16 at halftime or 17-13?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
So, it just didn't seem like we were going to be hitting that 40 mark or, we're going to really have to get this going. But we were keeping up with them. And they had a dynamic offense going, and we kept up with them. So I'm giving them a green check mark there.
Yeah, think about how this game ended versus how it was at halftime. This was a little bit of a feeling out. It felt like Marshall left some points on the board or left some points off the board in the first half. Could have had a lead going into halftime, just didn't. Still didn't feel bad about it. It was more of when we started really trading those touchdowns for field goals.
Fourth quarter and overtime. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. 7-7 after the first quarter, 17-13 at half, 17-16 going into the fourth quarter. So it was not what you would think about an explosive offense from either side. I kept thinking, wow, this is not the high scoring affair that we thought it was going to be. And then it kicked into gear.
Yeah. Then it got everybody started throwing haymakers, and each team answered that haymaker with their own haymaker. And it wasn't always scoring plays. And we'll talk about that here in a minute in grades. My final key to victory was don't call off the dogs until way late. You didn't even have the luxury to do that.
Yeah.
But they didn't get to call the dogs off at all. But what they did do was become more stout in that second overtime. They finally got the one stop that they needed to get on a third down to force a field goal. And after taking all those punches and I mean, really taking punch after punch, getting knocked down, getting kicked down, standing up, knocked down again. And it looked like a real long shot that Marshall would be able to win this game in regulation. It just looked out of hand. And I posted, I don't know if you saw it a little bit ago, I went back and did the thing that you like to look at, where's the percentage of chance you're going to win the game.
Looking at it right now.
It was all the way up to like almost 90% that Texas State was going to win the game.
Yeah.
And the herd overcame that. Look at that. That's why you can never, ever, 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 ever give up on Marshall. They're going to break your heart. You're going to not win a lot of those games. But sometimes like this, when we get to talk about the ones that do happen, they're so freaking sweet.
Hey, so, we had huge sack there, before they kicked the field goal. If we don't get that, I mean, there's a chance that they go down and score and then the game's over and everything. So even though we gave up the tying field goal in a short amount of time, they marched right down there. It was a huge threat for them. And we had two timely different times that we got in there and sacked them that pushed them back. Also, too, though, how heartbreaking was it? We had an interception in our hands that was going to end that game. Or make it to where we had a much easier chance to win, and just missed it.
Well, I'm going to talk about the other what the heck here in a minute, but let's get into some grades now. I mean, well, first before I move on from grades, that's almost, would you give them 0 for 4 X's, or they got
one for 4 because they kept up in scoring.
1 for 4. They also got 1 for 4 for me for not necessarily starting fast, but answering fast and engaging the crowd. That was it. Everything that usually won't happen on this show. You get 1 for 4 of our keys to victory, and you still win a game. I think that says a lot about the football team and how resilient and how gritty they are. Let's talk about grades, man. What do you got for Carlos Del Rio Wilson? I'll hit you one more time. 277 and a touchdown, an interception through the air, did not get sacked. 88 yards on the ground, was a long of 14. What do you got for CDRW?
Man, every grade here is tough for this game, but I gave him a B+. It wasn't one of those A+ games where he had 4 touchdowns or accounted for 5 touchdowns. Didn't have any on the ground, even though he did well running the ball. The interception is a little bit of a ding, but not that bad. And the guy put up 365 of our yards on the ground and through the air. It's just one total touchdown is kind of like it's below what we've become to expect of him in this offense. So I had it more in that B+ range because he threw an interception and he only had 1 touchdown. Had an amazing game, though. And you cannot understate how this offense moved with him when he was there and when they needed to, and he made the plays that needed to happen.
So here's the thing. We've now become accustomed to expecting so much more from him. But you put in any quarterback for Marshall probably since Byron left, and you, or really since Cato left. And you get a 22 for 32, 277 and a touchdown and a pick, and you're probably going to feel really great about that.
Plus what he did on the ground.
I'm not even talking about that. You give me that through the air, and you're probably thinking, wow, okay, that's a great day for a herd quarterback, because I'm thinking about the great running backs that really carried the load through all that duration of time. But that just tells you we now look at 10 incompletions as a down week for CDRW. Only 1 touchdown as a really down week for Del Rio Wilson. That's how great he's been. And this is still an unbelievable week from a quarterback. Again, this is a B+ B day because you finally toss one up for grabs and they come down with it, but you still don't get sacked. The toughness from getting having to come out of the game 3 times and nut up and go back into the game when you know your team has to have you out there to try to win this game, man, you got to give that kid all the credit in the world. He is earning every single accolade, every piece of positivity from the fan base. He's earning every single bit of it week in and week out. I hope fans really appreciate what they're seeing out of him right now. How about this offense as a whole? You get, 466 yards. You possess the football for more than half of the football game. 27 first downs really eats it away. Low lackluster on 3rd down, but still pretty good. And just the 1 turnover. What do you got for this offense?
I've also got a B+ here. We had an overthrow, another overthrow, a drop, and we had some crucial holding penalties and things like that can't let me ease it up into an A. They kept up the scoring when they easily could have just said, hey, guys, it's not our day. They're tearing us up and everything. So another great performance, but I just have them down in that B+ range.
Yeah, again, at this point, we expect so much yardage and points. We're just not used to seeing the herd trade field goals for touchdowns. Yeah. Right. And if they don't do that even just a couple of times, this game's out of reach.
Yeah.
This game's out of reach.
16 points through the first 3 quarters. And you're like, man, we got 1 touchdown out of this. And it's, on the ground from a strip sack, put us in, favorable field percentage. Field position. You're just looking like, man, the offense is just not there. It kicked in when it needed to kick in. This was not a bad performance. I'm just saying, some of those holding penalties, you've got to stop that. The drops, we've seen several of these to where we could have had, I'm talking about crossing routes over the middle with some wide open field in front of us. You got to have those.
Yeah, and because they're getting hit on us from time to time, so you have to be able to match that energy. At the end of the day, I think this is probably a B+ performance. You're not able to punch it in a couple of more times when you needed to, but you're still moving the football consistently. You're still racking up yardage. You're still eating away game clock. Ultimately, that matters. And in the closest of games, this was the difference. They were able to I don't want to say turn it on, but they were able to make those extra plays to get into the end zone late in the game when it really mattered. You got to give a shout out to the clutch performances of CDRW and Adrian Norton, Floyd Lacey. Clutch performances. The absolute power and don't quit of Joshawn Barbie in overtime. I mean, these guys sacked up when it mattered the most. Not that they weren't doing it the whole game, but they just were not going to be denied. When you get into the fourth quarter and overtime and this game finally looked like it was winnable for you, they did not, there was like no doubt in their mind they were going to win this game. And you cannot just gloss past that stuff, because this is not just X's and O's. This is an attitude of a team. This is a will to win of a team that can win you a championship if they keep playing consistently. What do you got for this defense? Let me hit you again with these video game numbers. 558 yards allowed, 444 freaking pass yards allowed to a rush-heavy team. 2 wide receivers go over 160, chunk play after chunk play after chunk play, but they just didn't quit either. They took the punches. They kept getting up. I posted the Rocky Balboa thing a little bit ago, and that's what I felt like. I felt like they were going, I didn't hear no bell. Let's go. One more round. We got one more in us. And that one more round allowed them to hold to a field goal and Marshall's offense to get the touchdown. Even though it was ugly, and gosh, you don't look at that and go, well, that was a pretty good performance. They didn't quit, man. They didn't freaking quit. They did just enough to get Marshall a win. What do you got for this defense?
I got a D. And for it to be up at a D when you give up that many points and those many chunk plays and everything, that means we had to have some special things happen. Mm-hmm. And we did. We had 10 tackles for loss. We had 4 sacks. We had an interception. We did put pressure back there on the quarterback, and he just stepped up and made some good plays, but we did put the pressure on him. Mainly, you take away, and it's a massive part of it. We've already talked about it. You take away those chunk plays, and they handled this offense. They came in averaging 5.5 rushing yards per carry as a team. They got 2.6 in this game. And we just went in and took that away from them. And think of all the chunk plays they had from rushing, from the quarterback, from their running backs, and we took it all away from them. So, yes, this is not a spectacular performance by the defense overall. Yes, it is a low grade. It's below the C average. They still made some huge plays. We just talked about getting the sacks and putting them back to where they had to take a field goal at the end of overtime. Into regulation, instead of going for the touchdown that would have won the game. We made some timely plays and everything that elevated it that much, but that's how low it was going in for them to get that D grade from me.
You just couldn't stop them. We couldn't stop the guys, man. It was, even when you did have them stopped, like I mentioned earlier, 3rd and 8, you got this, you shut this drive down, you're going to get the football back.
73-yard touchdown.
You're just going to squirrel away the game potentially, and they go 73 yards to pay dirt. And you're like, what in the hell? And that's after you get burned over the top so many times for 3 quarters. So it was not good at all. And I don't know if this was by design exclusively. They knew who they wanted to pick on, and they did that. I heard on the broadcast that they mentioned that, Boogie was not being targeted very often at all. So they were targeting their damage to half of the field even, which makes you think that it was mostly by design. But still, you have to be able to overcome that. They did. We got a win. You were able to overcome it. But man, you're not going to be able to overcome something like that too often and walk out of a game like that with a win.
And I didn't get to watch on a rewatch. I watched the first 2 touchdowns, then had stuff to do all day. I haven't been able to watch it yet, but it seemed to me like they were doing that damage on like quick slants and over the middle, ends, and not necessarily a pick play, but stacking out on the side, and you've got 2 receivers, and as soon as the ball gets to him, you've got a blocker right there. You get past one. That's what happened on the 66-yarder that was in the first few seconds of the game. Is they had 2 guys out there, quick out. We miss a tackle, and then he's got a blocker, and the guy goes nearly untouched. Well, he does go untouched till we get down and chase him down at the 1. But they did their damage on short throws to get those long plays. But it was attacking soft spots. They just saw them. They game planned for it. Yeah. D. I mean, it could have easily been an F, but it wasn't because of how tenacious their defense was to make sure that they did everything they could to win the game. And make no mistake, without the defensive stops, we don't win that game. They did what they needed to do when we needed to have it.
For sure. I was sitting there watching the final drive, the final sack by Alameen, and I'm watching the clock, and I'm watching these guys kind of hurry, and I'm like, holy shit, are they going to get it off? Is it, because they have no timeouts, and I'm thinking,
yeah,
are they going to get it off? And they get up and are able to spike the ball with 3 seconds left, and I'm thinking, this is that game of inches type thing. It's like, man, if a couple more plays took 1 second longer throughout the duration of this fourth quarter, the clock runs out on these guys. But to know you can go in and win a defensive meltdown game, we lost one a couple of weeks ago, and we won one now. So obviously the defense kind of came back to earth a little bit after the great game against Old Dominion. They did enough. Not a great day. D is fair. Special teams, we got.
Well, first I got to talk about that spike.
Okay.
I had a fan that was kind of behind me in my section, and I promise you I'm not trying to call you out, but he had me questioning because he was saying as soon as it happened, he said, you can't do that. You can't spike the ball from shotgun. And I was sitting here running through almost like the Matrix with things coming down. And I'm like, I've seen that happen. I swear I've seen that happen. I had to look it up just to make sure, but yes, you can in NCAA, as long as you do it immediately, it is a legal spike to do so. But that was, I mean, at the end of regulation before the icing of the field goal and all that, I'm sitting here going, did they get it wrong? He had me question it. So I just had to bring that up. Special teams, I have an A. You get every field goal that you need. Even though they kind of got over, I think, the line of gain on that fake punt, we hit them so hard, Ben Turner gets that fumble recovery, which was massive to be able to do that. Massive. We do every single thing that we need. And also on special teams, that's where the 2-point conversion play comes in. So, you know what? Not an A plus. I mean, there was just nothing wrong with that. That was just head to tails. Everything they needed to do, they did it.
Yeah, this is an A plus game for the fact it would have been an A plus without the 2-point conversion. I mean, you need that to win the game, right?
Yeah.
But if that play hadn't have happened, just by creating the turnover late in the game, Chasen Clark causes the fumble, forced fumble. Ben Turner picks it up, gives you an opportunity to go down and get this game back in hand. I can't believe that happened. I really cannot. I mean, the cojones on Kenny to call that in that scenario. And Coach Gibson said the same thing. He's like, he's just trying to win the game. If they pick that up, the game is probably going to be, pretty close to being over.
Yeah.
And you get the forced fumble, to get the fumble recovery, and then the sequence of plays that happens. But the icing on the cake is the busted Philly special. I mean, that was going to be a pass to CDRW. It was going to be, and it just wasn't there. And Floyd's like, welp, looks like I got to make something happen here. And the athleticism, Mr. Electricity himself, finds the end zone in a unbelievably clutch 2-point conversion. Might be the biggest 2-point conversion that I can recall for the Herd. And I was sitting here thinking, immediately what came into my head was, I think it was just a touchdown. I was like, wait, was that Stan Hill thing? Was that a 2-point conversion, or was that a touchdown? I was like, that was a touchdown. That wasn't a 2-point. So I'm thinking this might be the biggest 2-point that I can recall in recent memory.
You're missing one. It's glaring. The end of the season last year against James Madison.
Oh.
We had the trickery for the touchdown, and then the trickery for the 2-point conversion to put that game away, and that won the game.
I'll tell you why I didn't think of that is because I didn't get to see that. I had to watch it maybe on replay or just highlights or something. So I didn't watch it live. I didn't have the investment in real time. The only one I think popped into my head, and I don't even remember if this was a 2-point. Was there one several years ago? It was maybe on senior day or something. We were playing, I want to think FIU, and maybe Brendan Knox had a 2-point late in the game, like to win the game, or it was in overtime. Maybe I'll have to go back and look at that. But that's why I didn't think of JMU. I didn't get to watch that one live.
That one, if you watch those two plays back to back to get the touchdown, on the quote unquote trick play, and then the same thing on, I think it was Tyshawn Chapman runs it in there on the 2-point. That one stands out to me because it wins the game. This one, huge, but that one was, that was the deciding factor and won that game.
Special teams was either way you want to look at, however you want to look at it, so clutch. Second game in a row with a forced turnover on special teams. I mean, what you keep having that happen, you're going to keep winning some football games for sure. What do you got for the coaching staff in this one?
Man, it's a B+. I feel like, at some point, getting burned on the defensive backfield has to come down on the coaches. It's just drastically different than last week, even though they had a step on us a couple times last week. They just overthrew the ball. But the calls that they had, keeping this team in this, and the way that it all went down, it's a B+. You can't just say it's an A overall, but defense, offense, special teams, you don't get this win unless you get this key stuff from every single unit. It's a B+, borderline on an A-. I've seen a lot of people say you don't call the timeout right there on the kicker. You don't do that because he missed it and all that would have won the game. That's a whole lot of hindsight, it is. Because how many times do we see that and we say, oh, they're going to ice him right here. They're going to ice him. They're going to ice him right here. And he called the timeout. They allowed him to kick it. This is what WKU said about us back in 2016, I think 17. It was. Yeah, said you can't allow them to kick the ball there, because that gives them the opportunity to have a practice. And we had Rohrwasser had, that's when it was. Rohrwasser had that many practice kicks, to do it. Well, this guy got to practice. He just happened to miss. If he makes it that first time, no one's sitting there saying, "Oh man, he shouldn't have iced him there." So it's a lot of hindsight. I can't say that that's a bad coaching call. That's just pretty much the norm. I disagree a lot of times with icing the kicker, but it is so much the norm that I'm not going to say, man, that was a bad call. I just can't do that. Let's say he hits it from 50 there the first time we did call the timeout. You're going to have a lot of people going, oh, man, thank God he called that timeout. Otherwise that would have counted. And he just happened to make it again. So you throw hindsight out, I guarantee you there wasn't a lot of people going, man, I hope they don't ice this kicker right here.
Well, oddly enough, I was one of the guys in real time hoping that they didn't ice the kicker. And I'll tell you why. Because this kicker is fresh off of the heels of 2 consecutive games where missed kicks led to losses for his team. And I was thinking, okay, that is on his mind. Here he is in this scenario where it's a 3rd straight game this is going to happen. He's probably also expecting to get iced. I hope we don't do it. I was hoping that it just didn't happen. And then, of course, he misses the field goal. We ice the kicker, and he gets another shot, and he nails it. And I was thinking, dang, I wasn't at that point going, that was a bad decision. Right. I was just hoping it wouldn't happen.
And the same with me. I'm not saying that I wanted him to get iced, because largely, I'm against that practice. I think you have them get there because most of the time they're like, it's going to happen. So this is just going to give me more time to prepare and think about and, line up where I need to go. So I'm usually against it, but I don't think it was a bad call. I think people thought it was a bad call because he ended up missing the kick. And that's all hindsight. You can't say that's bad on anybody's part.
No, it wasn't bad. It just was like, I was just hoping it wouldn't happen. And then to Tony Gibson's credit in the post-game press conference. I don't know if you've listened to it or watched it yet.
I haven't.
I have. And he always leads with an opening statement, and then they take questions. And he was like, yeah, I almost lost the game for us there by icing the kicker. That one's on me. And, he said, and the kids came right up to me after that and said, don't worry about it, Coach. We got you. We're going to go win this game. And he was saying, I'm paraphrasing. And he says, you've got a locker room full of kids in there that I told them they overcame some bad coaching by me today. So the level of accountability that Tony Gibson continues to put out there to the fan base is just not something we're used to hearing a lot. And boy, it's really refreshing. He owns his mistakes. He owns when he messes up. And that's the way it ought to be, man. So he said, I almost lost that game for us, right? He was thinking like, that one would have been on me. If this one would have ended up being a loss, that would have been on me because I iced that kicker. And for the kids to come over to him on the sideline immediately after the kick is good to say, we got you. Don't worry. We'll close this one out. This team is kind of special. And one thing we can also look past now is even if we were concerned there in the first third there of the season is how's this going to go? Are they going to win games? Are the wheels going to fall off? How's this going to work? And you're always concerned in a coaching change. It's like, are we going to revisit something like 2016? Well, we're not. This is not a 3-win ball club. We didn't really ever feel like this was a 2- and 3-win team. That was hilarious to us from the get-go. And to think if you win out, you're a 9-win team, and we kind of fell in that 8-win kind of deal the whole time. Yeah. I still feel good about that, but the coaching was okay. We don't ever break it down into offense, defense, and special teams. Offense was great. Defense was not great. And special teams forced another turnover, accounted for a lot of points. So it all evens out to, roughly an average grade. Fans, 27,533 in attendance at the game. Great alumni turnout. Great fan presence online. I will tell you that. There are some guys I think that were waiting on this one, and I'm not talking just about burners. There were some guys that have been waiting for this game to happen because of some chirping from Texas State fans, certain Texas State fans that have been chirping for quite a while. Eating a little crow today. Sorry about your luck. But overall, the fans were great. They were really great in this one. What do you got for them?
I got a B+, and it's another one of these split things. The people that were there and were loud, it was one of those environments that were created that really helped be that 12th man and helped us win this game. I have to feel like the players fed off of this. The loud "We Are Marshall" chants. The loud "We Are Marshall" chants. The loud just disrupting in overtime that caused that false start. It was a difference maker. At nearly 28,000. Yes, I would have liked to have seen close to 30, but then you're calling for a sellout, when you get to 30. But here's where they get dinged. And no, I didn't see anything online because the only time that I got to post 2 things during the game, all that I wasn't surfing the social media or anything, but we had a lot of people not participate in the helmet stripe. And this is from my perspective, sitting in the chairbacks looking at the east side. There was blue, maroon, and not maroon that was a Texas State fan. It was just some Herd fan decided to wear a dark red shirt. There was friends of mine that that I got on a little bit because they just said, I'm not going to wear that shirt. It's 80 some degrees and I'm not wearing black. And I'm like, man, participate in this first time ever helmet stripe the stadium. And, they have every right to do whatever they want to do, but help things like that. We talked about how important it was, how great it would look on there. And the east side, man, it did not look near as full and as good as I thought that it could.
Yeah, you talk about pushing a sellout. Now, obviously, we would love for Herd fans to buy up 30,000 tickets and go to the games, but that's also so heavily reliant on playing an opponent that will travel. We've had our biggest games, Louisville comes to mind, Virginia Tech comes to mind. Of course, the games with WVU come to mind. It's always teams that have fan bases that will travel and fill up that visitor section, and that means something. Yeah. And it doesn't help that San Marcos is so far away. You might have had a better chance of doing that if homecoming would have been against Old Dominion, would have been against James Madison, would have been against somebody closer, App State, for example, that would have a tendency to make the game. But still, 27,000, and it ain't bad for some Herd fans. That's pretty good. I'd always love to have a packed house, but I also understand it takes a traveling fan base from a visiting team to help round that out. But most of my interaction, of course, was with people online and seeing what they were saying, and the usual suspects were doing what the usual suspects do, so that never really factors in. But guys were. It was nice to see everybody kind of like exhaling from this really close win, enjoying the hell out of it, and embracing like, wow, what we just watched. Wow, what a game, because you lose that game and it would have been a 180 in the other direction. Everybody would have been jumping off cliffs and this, that, and the other, and it just wasn't that way. It was great. It was great. So back-to-back wins for the Herd, 2 in a row at home. Like, this is what you want, right? Overall, what do you got?
Hey, man, it was great to get a win there. What a game to watch. Amazing tailgate, which we talked about earlier. And again, thanks to Landscaping by Hillcrest for making that possible for our tailgates. Everybody that came by there kept saying, man, you guys just do tailgating on another level. And I said, thank Landscaping by Hillcrest. They allow this to happen. But great game, great weather, great friends that I hadn't seen in a while. A couple of our brothers that made the trip down, and just an A overall.
Yeah, really great. And even from being 900 miles away, this was a great homecoming. Even just being able to take part in ThunderCast Live helps. It still gives me a sense that I'm there in some capacity. And I got to tell you that this format that we've worked out with that show now, to where we're talking about, we get to talk about injury reports. We get to do kind of go around the Sun Belt. There really wasn't anything going on this week, so we were amongst all of the early games with everybody else. That provides such a value for Herd fans that can't get to the game. If you listen to us week in and week out in the regular episodes, but you're not tuning in to ThunderCast Live before kickoff of the game, you're really missing out on something, because not only are you getting some more up-to-date preview of the impending matchup, but you're going to catch interviews from time to time, people that stop by the tailgates and say what's up. I mean, you just never really know who's going to get on cam and talk for a minute. It's pretty freaking cool. Offensive MVP, who's your guy this week?
So before we hit record, I told you I had a little thing here. I can't give one other than say the entire offensive unit, because you start looking at how important Floyd Lacey was to, the catches that he did to get us the yards that he did and the times that he did, that 2-point conversion, how clutch it was. You look at Joshawn Barbie with 2 touchdowns, but really 12 carries for 33 yards. Nothing leaps out there, but he got the touchdowns that he needed, and without him, that doesn't happen. Carlos Del Rio-Wilson only has the 1 touchdown, and he has his first interception of the year, but he accounted for 365 of our 466 yards. The offensive line kept this Bobcats defense. They got to us one time, and no times against, as you corrected me, no times against CDRW. And Adrian Norton with just the spectacular "I will not quit," which was an analogy for the entire game, that specific play and his efforts on it. You just start looking top to bottom. Antoine Roberts, as hard as he was running, there's just no point on here where I could say no one deserves this because everyone deserves this. So, I mean, that's why I have to do that. So everyone gets the game ball this week from the offense.
I was thinking the same thing, man. I was sitting here thinking before, in the duration of my prep, and I was like, I can't pick one guy. Hell, I can't even pick 2 guys. It's like, because every time I would try to make a case for one guy, I'd be like, well, without 2 touchdowns in overtime, Marshall doesn't win. So you got to talk about Barbie. Well, if you don't get the 2-point conversion and Lacey doesn't have some chunk plays through the air, you don't get in position to win that game at all. If Chasen Clark doesn't knock the football out, then you don't have that play. If Norton doesn't fight off a tackler and get into the end zone, you don't have a chance to win the game. So I couldn't point to 1, 2, 3 guys. This is a complete offensive effort. Every single guy earned a little bit of accolade and a little bit of shine in this one. The entire Herd offense and the offensive coaching staff are all the MVPs this week, without a doubt. Who's your defensive guys?
Same exact thing for defense. If you don't have P3 getting that timely sack that he did, if you don't have Braden Ward with the strip sack that he did, if you don't have Marvay Myers late in the game getting the sack that he did to put them back into and Alameen, the sack that he did, the interception by Sweeting in the end zone, the pass breakup that was almost an interception that was going to ice the game, but still you really needed to have that. And you just start looking, it's top to bottom here again, that it was a defensive effort because the team said, we're not going to quit. Yes, we've been burned. Yes, we've been giving these up. We're going to get this stop when it matters, and we have to do it right now. So, again, the entire team.
Yeah, it really is, man. It's not one guy that went out and had a monstrous game like the linebacker that we featured for Texas State, Traylon Payne. He had 20-some tackles in the game, dude. It's like set a stadium record for an opponent. But we didn't have a guy that did that. Yeah, JaVale Gilmore gets 12, Boogie gets 10, but without each and every one of those sacks, the offensive flow for Texas State continues.
Right.
Without the stop on third down in double overtime.
10 tackles for loss.
You just can't point to one guy. Again, the entire team, even though this defense was glaringly the weak spot in this game for the Herd, they still came together enough to do enough to get this big homecoming win. You got to give it to everybody that took a snap, made a block, anything. Special teams.
So here you've said Chasen Clark a couple times, and I have to say I have not seen the replay. So I'm going live. Ben Turner's number 10, Chasen Clark's number 10. So unless Chasen was wearing a different jersey number.
Well, that's what they kept saying on TV.
It was Ben Turner came up and got the fumble. So unless Clark, which they do sometimes, 15 Short and Porter, they change jersey numbers. One of them puts on 46 or 48 or something like that. So it may have been Chasen Clark, but Ben Turner came up with that ball. So if Chasen got that, forced that fumble, because ESPN does not list any forced fumbles on our side. So it's hard to tell until I can go back and rewatch. But I'm going to say Ben Turner just because that's what I saw there, and I saw him go and get the turnover bone and thing on the sideline. So I know it was Ben Turner that came up with the ball. But whomever caused the fumble, whether it was Ben or another one of our players, Ben gets the turnover. We have a 2-point conversion by Floyd Lacey that is just, like you've already said, just crazy important to this game, and we don't win without it. And then you've got Lorcan Quinn hitting all of the field goals that he did. I, again, have to cop out and say this is an entire special teams effort. You can't just point to Quinn, can't just point to Lacey, can't just point to Turner and whoever caused the fumble. Yeah, but you can't. And that's why before this, I said I don't want to spoil it. I never tell you my grades. I never tell you what I'm going to do for MVP. But I said it's going to be a little bit different when we get to some of the things. And this was it. Offense, defense, and special teams, each of those units get the MVP of the week for me.
Yeah, again, I agree. And while you were talking, giving your synopsis, I even brought up Yahoo Sports to see if it would tell me who's got the fumble, and they don't list who caused the fumble. It just says David Nunez fumbled, Ben Turner recovered. So we're going to have to watch a replay and figure out who exactly it was. I kept saying Chasen Clark because that's what they said on TV.
Yeah.
So if it's Ben, dude, I apologize. You earned that one if you caused the fumble too and recovered it.
Yeah. I kept watching the replay in the stadium, and I mean, as massive as that board is, there was one angle that they showed, and it's basically from the press box,
Right.
and you could not see on that side of the field who caused the fumble. You couldn't even see there was a fumble. You just see, oh my gosh, that's really close to the line to gain. And then we come up with the ball.
Yeah, they kept saying on TV, like, well, they're not going to show this one in the stadium because it was so close. They didn't want the crowd to influence anything. But wow, what a major so for the entire team, everybody are the MVPs this week.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What a crazy recap we're having here. I've got a question for you, and I haven't asked you this in a while. What do we know about the Herd after 7 games?
We know that they are 2 plays away from being 6-1. We know that they have all these new players that are here, and they are playing above just about everybody nationally. The opinions that they had coming into this, they wrote this team off. They erroneously said every single player went down to USM, or every starter went down to Southern Miss, and that couldn't be further from the truth. As we've covered, we brought in some players that we knew were going to be some players. We brought in some players that were going to be dogs. We talked about how prolific this offense could be under Rod Smith. We talked about Tony Gibson knowing the 3-3-5 defense, and what performance they did against ODU was crazy. We have had some learning curves, and I feel like we have gotten better nearly every week, even with the losses. And I think this is one of the better 4-3 teams that you're going to find. Definitely in the Sun Belt. But I think we are so crazy close to being 6-1, and that the games really don't matter unless you start looking at, will that Louisiana 1 loss affect how we finish if we get to play in the conference championship game. That's the really only takeaway from it, because the lessons that you learned from that loss and from the Missouri State loss, that is making us a better team moving forward. And I don't think anybody in the Sun Belt right now is looking at Marshall and going, that's a guaranteed win. I don't think anybody in there. James Madison looks like they're above everybody else right now in the East. I don't think that they're going, well, you can count that as a victory playing against Marshall, definitely at home.
Yeah. No, I think what I know about the Herd is that retrospect bug is going to pop up. If CDRW is your starter in game 2, you're probably a 1-loss ball club, and of course there's some other things that need to go in it. Floyd Lacey needs to start taking snaps on offense earlier. So it's a lot of retrospect stuff. But what I know about this Herd now, they are gritty. They don't quit. They'll find a way. They might 100%. Not always win, but they will find a way to stay in a game, because we haven't seen them get blown off the field, discounting Georgia, right? Like, that's 2 different echelons of football. Against peer institutions, we have not seen the Herd get blown off the field yet. They find a way to stay in games. They find a way to win games, or they can come out and dominate a game. We just have not seen them get blown off the field. We've seen them get beaten on plays. They went for it on 4th down in this one. They got blown off the ball. It just got blown up and it didn't work. And that's what we saw the next time there was a 4th and 1, led to a field goal attempt instead of going for it. So there are moments, but overall this team is just gritty and gutty. I mean, they're really easy to like. I can also see why they give people heart problems. Yeah. But they're really, really easy to get behind and just root for, because this looks like a ragtag bunch of underdogs that are coming together to make some noise in the Sun Belt Conference. It's really, really fun. I don't think I've seen a team like this, a Marshall team like this, because this portal and NIL is like still evolving, and it's not been to this level previously. But this is the coolest thing, man. These guys all came together and they're winning and they're having a hell of a lot of fun. And they seem to just love it in Huntington. And I think the crowd after this game really cemented that they all made the right decisions as to who to come and play for, the crowd they wanted to come and play in front of. I think this is a contender. You have to call the Herd an SBC East contender. You have to call them a Sun Belt Conference contender, because like I said at the very beginning, they control their own destiny. They win and they're in. That's it. They win and they're in. It's a 5-game season right now. You win 5 games, you're going to the Sun Belt Conference Championship. It's just that simple. You got any final words on this one before we get out of here?
Not at all.
Not at all. Holy moly.
We've covered it all, man. We've covered it all.
Well, okay. The only thing I'll say is remember we got a long week. It's a weird week. You got Thursday night game coming up at Coastal Carolina on the road here in a little bit. So it'll be a little extra time to rest up. I think you're going to need that. CDRW got battered around a little bit in that game, had to exit a couple times. This is a great time to have 2-3 extra days to get treatment and recover. We got some other guys. Maybe you see Mike Allen come back. Wouldn't it be great to get a Mike Allen, Joshawn Barbie, Antoine Roberts type backfield with a more healthy CDRW? This would be great, man. So strap in, enjoy some extra days of rest as a Herd fan. Get ready to go down to Coastal Carolina and get another win and keep it rolling. Take us out of here.
Whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Dot, or whether you see us at the Joan, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd is the ThunderCast. We'll see you when we see you. Later.